Hi, Ralph.
Hi, Jim.
How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
How are you?
Doing well also. I went hunting over the last 24 hours, Ralph.
You did?
Yes.
What's in season now?
Well, I caught a raccoon.
In your Have a Heart trap that we talked about in our last podcast.
Mm-hmm. And so I took the raccoon for a motor trip this morning, a road trip. Yep.
So, and you let it off in a
swamp. Yeah. So hopefully the veggies are safe.
Okay.
Now, some people aren't safe, however. Last week we talked about aggressive driving,
right?
Distracted driving, and just how dangerous it is to either a pedestrian or a person on a bike.
We touched on that, and you were telling me, Jim, about some interesting and unfortunately negative results that you've heard on the news lately.
Yeah, almost. I think every day since we did the last podcast on aggressive driving, I've followed the news on TV 9 and 10, our kind of local station, and each day there was a report of a fatality, either on bikes or on motorcycles.
Okay, and one of the things that we know, and probably in your area, wherever you're listening from, you've seen the signs up that says motorcycles are everywhere, pay attention, kind of thing.
Right.
And back in the day, I rode a motorcycle for a couple of years, and having been a rider, I know how difficult it is to see motorcycles.
Yeah. Right.
And so I'm maybe a little more aware than some drivers are of watching for people on either bicycles or motorcycles.
Mm-hmm. So the news this morning that I took a look at hit closer to home. Just about a mile from here, there was a fatality last night at about 6 o'clock. So, it was a guy who was riding a bike, and he got hit by a car going in the opposite direction, I guess, from him. Anyhow, that's sort of prelude to what we're going to talk about today, Ralph. We're going to talk about longevity. Living a long life.
Living a long life and a happy one.
Stay off the motorcycle, right?
Yeah, stay off the motorcycle, or at least if you're going to be on a motorcycle, wear a good asphalt-resistant leather jacket and a helmet.
And a hat, probably a bright green jacket would work, and a bright green hat would.
Yeah.
But we're not going to see motorcycle drivers with that, are we?
No, probably not. I have my freedom to ride without a helmet and let the wind tease my hair, and that's all very good in terms of personal freedom, but the oak tree is very unforgiving.
Mm-hmm. When I sold you my very small motorbike, I gave you my leather jacket. You remember that?
Yes, I remember that.
Remember the color?
Yeah, it was the
bright
color
red.
Of Queen's University, bright red.
Yeah, and so I probably saved your life a few times.
Well, you've certainly saved me from some serious road rash until I learned to ride relatively well, because like skiing, like water skiing, I tended to ride my motorcycle about 10% faster than my ability for the first 6 months.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you did survive, Ralph. And the fact that you have a master's degree and, didn't drop out of school at age 16 probably in some way contributes to your longevity. Do you believe that?
I believe that. And one of the things that I believe it because is Jim and I have done some research over the last while, and what we are finding consistently, and these figures come from all over the world, from New Zealand, from England, and from the United States, and I'm sure if we looked into Europe, it would be the same. The higher education attainment that you have, the more likely you are to live not only a rich, full life, but also a long life.
Yeah. Well, the uh, stats I'm going to share with you in a minute come from not New Zealand or Britain or Washington State, but rather come from Central Michigan University, where you and I have gotten our master's degrees, and we
And
looked.
both have taught it.
Yeah, and so Jerry Fuller and I have been looking at a database of age of people at death here at CMU. And how did we get that information? It's in the alumni magazine. So
Okay.
every 3 months, there's an alumni magazine, and there are about 100 to 300 people who died in the magazine. They didn't die in the magazine; they're listed in the magazine.
Okay.
Okay. And so we began to take a look at the age at death, and we saw that it seems to be a lot higher, that is, they're living longer, than the average age of death, at death, of Michiganians.
Okay, so if we look at some figures that were published in the Detroit Free Press, they did a study and they said, okay, we're going to look at Michigan lifespans. And in 1901, if you were a man, you lived on average in the United States 47.6 years.
Okay, so death
And
at an early age.
And in Michigan, if you were a man, you lived an average of 53.4 years.
Okay, so you were more, you lived a longer life.
You lived a longer life by about 5 years.
And that's 1901.
If you were female in 1901 in Michigan, you lived to about 55 years.
Okay, so you outlived the male, and you outlived the national average. What happened, say, in 2022?
Well, if you were in Michigan, you lived 74.6 years if you were a male. And in the U.S., the national average in 2022 was 74.8 years.
Okay, so longevity seems to be going down in our fair state.
It does,
okay.
But not hugely, but enough. I think if you did the stats on this, it would be a significant difference.
Okay, yeah.
And if you were a woman, you lived 79.7 years in Michigan, as opposed to 80.2 years in the national average.
Okay, so that's 2022, and that's right in the middle of the COVID epidemic, and we know that Michigan got particularly slammed with that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we may find that now in 2024, if we had any figures, which we don't, that the Michigan average is up slightly. You would expect that.
Yeah. So Jerry and I, when we looked at the data, we saw the 78 years for the U.S. in general, or Michigan in general, and our sample is about 86 years or so. And so we did a very rudimentary statistical analysis, and there's a significant difference between people who attained a higher education at Central Michigan University and the Michigan average.
Okay, so basically then we can infer that if you attain at least a bachelor's degree, you're going to live statistically significantly longer.
Right. And so we are now scratching our head trying to figure out why that might be. And we've come up with some hypotheses. One is that a more highly educated individual might have better access to health care.
Okay.
In that, they may look up, if they're experiencing a symptom, they might look something up on the internet, and that might prod them to go and see their GP. Or they might have health insurance, as opposed to somebody who has a lesser educated individual who maybe is working at a job that doesn't provide any health insurance. So that was one thing we thought about. So that's kind of it's sort of a health knowledge thing, and using your health knowledge to influence your behavior.
Okay.
Now,
So how about occupational factors just over and above having health care?
you know, you and I, as professors, had a pretty good um, occupation. I mean, we had a warm, safe environment in which to work, right? It was
Right.
supportive. And um, I think back to my days as a college student working at the steel plant, which was a dangerous place. And, I'm lucky. I think lucky I came out alive from that place. So um, I can say, relatively assuredly that, um, except working in the prison, I've worked in pretty safe places.
Yeah, and I too spent some summers working in the steel mill, and um, I was fortunate or unfortunate that my father, who also worked for the mill and had a relatively senior position, went to the hiring department the summer that I wanted to get a job and say, "Oh, I'm going to make lots of money at the steel mill." And he said, "I want you to give my son the hardest, dirtiest jobs that you can find him all summer long."
That,
And they did.
oh, good. I thought you were a person who checked people in at the.
Well, that was the next couple of years, but the first year I had a lot of bricklaying and barn strip mill and blah blah,
So,
they were all hard and dirty and a lot of night shifts and
so you got the cushy job in year 2 or 3, and I think I got your hard, ugly, dirty job.
in year 2 or 3.
Yeah,
But the thing is that what it really did is convince me that going to university was a good thing,
right.
as opposed to making the lots of money as it seemed to an 18-year-old young man.
Yeah. Well, it took you a while to accumulate enough cash to buy a snowmobile, but hey, welcome to the club, right?
Yeah, right.
Something that's kind of interesting when you think about longevity, you think, well, it's been said if we live long enough, we're all going to go into cognitive decline. So, do you think that there's a downside to this? Or is it that the kinds of jobs that people get are going to keep them um, cognitively sharp?
Well, I think there's a couple of factors there, Jim. One of them is that uh, people who have at least a BA and preferably an advanced degree tend to work in areas of employment that keep them sharp, that are not, you know, for lack of a better term, I'm going to say just paper shuffling. You take the inbox and you fill it up and the outbox and blah, blah. You have to keep thinking. The other thing is that you you may get cognitive decline, but it's going to be cognitive decline that happens late in life and for less time than somebody who has less formal education.
Okay, well, that's something to, I guess, sort of look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, if you said to somebody, okay, you can do 18 years of education, or you can do 20 years of education. If you do 20 years of education, you will end up with 6 months of bewilderment at the end of your life. Or if you do 18, you can end up with a year and a half of bewilderment at the end of your life.
Okay.
Which do you pick?
Okay. And if you drop out of high school, you're probably going to be bewildered for a long period of time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's at least our spin on, our take on the numbers that Jerry and I seem to be getting right now. And we'll get back to you at some point in time. But I think, if you're going to live long and prosper, you should probably follow some of the suggestions that we've put together in the book, Protecting Your Family. And if you would like to get a PDF copy of that, simply send an email to either Ralph or myself. My email is caro1jl@cmish.edu, and I'll put that, and I'll put your email in the Learn More too, Ralph.
Okay, very good.
And we'll send you the Protecting Your Family. You can take
protecting your family's health, and it goes into things like diet and not smoking. And I just read an interesting thing this morning, that now more people are saying that they smoke marijuana on a daily basis than people who are saying I drink alcohol on a daily basis.
So what does that mean? People are just changing the drug of choice?
I think it means that, and I think it also, in the long run, taking any kind of inhalant into your lungs, which is not basically air, is going to turn out to be harmful.
Yeah.
So just as we didn't know that tobacco was harmful 30 years ago, we probably don't know the long-term effects of smoking marijuana.
Okay, and if you're in Los Angeles, probably inhaling the air isn't all that great for you, right?
Probably not, yeah.
Well, until the next time, this is Jim.
And Ralph.
Saying,
keep your stick on the ice, because we're all in this together.
Little cognitive slippage there, Ralph.
Yes.
Okay.